As the pandemic-induced disruption has impacted the insurance industry in different ways, how are insurance companies looking at reinventing their business models? So, with the general underlying models remains the same, the panel will focus on the new learning and outcomes to emerge strongly with the shift in how business is done with reinvention. So, what is the next wave of insurance? Amol Dete, who is the editor of ETBFSI, is with us to find the answer.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to ETBFSI Converge. Being a journalist and editor, I have moderated many panel discussions. But let me tell you, this particular panel discussion, specifically crafted on reinventing businesses digitally, is truly unique. This discussion is unique because all the CEOs who are taking part into this panel discussion are high achievers and all of them are ladies. Let me admit, this doesn't happen very often in the industry. And that's why let me take a pride in introducing all of them to you, though you know them very well. My first speaker is Vibha Padalkar, MD and CEO HDFC Life. Vibha ma'am, welcome on the show. My next speaker is RM Vishakha, MD and CEO India First Life Insurance. Vishakha ma'am, welcome on the show. My next speaker is Anamika Roy, MD and CEO IFCO Tokyo General Insurance. Anamika ma'am, welcome on the show. And my last speaker is Shanay Ghosh, CEO and ED Edelweiss General Insurance. Shanay ma'am, welcome on the show. To begin with, I will come to you, Vibha ma'am, and my question is specifically about the topic, which is reinventing business models. In last 6 months, we have seen obviously insurance banks are the part of the essential services, and all of you are working in these 6 months as well very aggressively. I would like to know what are your basic learnings in terms of reinventing business models, because every business has transformed in last 6 months. So what is that has happened at HDFC Life in last 6 months?
Amal, very pertinent. First thing was in terms of all our stakeholders, employees came first. We had to support them in several ways, including the work from home as well as advanced salaries. This was on the 21st of March. Mental health, physical health, and so on. Communicate, and communicate once more, and really be a family in a virtual way that we can. Second was on customers, in terms of how do you service customers, how do you prevent a kind of run on the bank kind of a feeling. And today I'm proud to say that our customers do not need to walk in physically into any of our branches for anything. Of course, we would welcome them, and our branches are open, a lot of them are open, but it's not necessary. So that has been a paradigm shift. Third is in terms of new business. A new business, both in terms of how do you sell digital, non-face-to-face. Today, through our Wise platform, we're able to do end-to-end sale. So that is a big plus point. And more importantly, we do see the glass half full. It'll be a shame if we were to waste this pandemic, because we are seeing a big pull on protection products, and even other pandemics has seen that. And if we don't really reinforce to every Indian the need for protection, then we've really lost a golden opportunity to help Indians protect their lives and their loved ones. So holistically speaking, all of it is coming together. August was is looking better than July, July looking better than the earlier months, and so on. And the 12% growth that we saw makes us feel reasonably good that all things being equal, we should come out of this pandemic towards the end of the year.
Shanay ma'am, I will come to you because you're heading a general insurance company. How has this 6 months for you, and what is the biggest learning in terms of tweaking or spinning the business models?
Well, for Edelweiss General Insurance, I think it's probably the newest insurance company in the country today. So we are a little over 2 years old. So for us, it was not so much as reinventing the business model, because we were invented as a digital business model. For us, it was more of a validation of the business model that we've created. Will it stand the acid test of the pandemic? And happy to say that it did. We grew very fast. We grew in the segments we wanted to grow. But more importantly, like Vibha said, apart from the business model, I think it was more a transformation of mindsets. Because we always, were like I told you, digital business model. We always did paperless sales, paperless transactions. But the habit was still of going to office. Habit was still in meeting people. So the lockdown and the pandemic actually forced us to say that can this transformation of mindsets happen? And it was difficult in the first, but it happened, and for us it happened quite quickly. It was more important for us to get transformation in the mindsets of our advisors, our partners, our customers, and the pandemic forced that. So for us, the last 6 months have been very gratifying actually, both in terms of growth, as well in terms of the employee engagement, partner engagement, as well as in terms of launch of new products. So for us, it was a validation of our digital business model. And again, like Vibha said, that we shouldn't waste the silver lining that this pandemic has given us. Health was always a focus area for us. Our first product that we launched was health. So again, the focus continues, and that's one shift that the non-life insurance industry has seen is the shift on health. You know, earlier motor used to dominate, now health is becoming a really dominant segment for us, and that's a welcome, I think, focus shift. And for us, capitalizing on the shift, bringing health up the curve in terms of awareness and driving urgency, I think all of that has happened in the last 6 months. For us, the last 6 months has been very gratifying.
Appreciate your views, Shanay ma'am. And now I will just, tweak the question, since obviously learnings are important, and Vibha ma'am and Shanay ma'am spoke about what has happened. So let's talk about what is going to happen. So Vishakha ma'am, we heard, HDFC Life and Edelweiss General Insurance Company talking about the major changes. That is actually the way insurance companies are dealing with pandemic and the major changes that they are trying to the companies. So I will tweak the same question to you in a different format. With the learnings that we have in last 6 months, how are you preparing yourself for the post-pandemic world?
One of the biggest learnings in the past 6 months has been that the benefits that we got as an organization was not out of any actions that we took in these 6 months. All the benefits that we got, whether it was in March where we managed to end the month with the lowest growth and end the year with the highest growth, it was all because we were into digitization for the past 4 years. We were already 95% of our applications were digital. And initiatives that we took off BCP 2 years back are the ones that actually helped us during the pandemic. If we could move to work from home, and I don't think I speak only for myself, I think we speak as an industry. If all of us who could move to work from home could do so, that was because we had robust backup and we had robust, business continuity plans in place, and all our BCPs were working. With that learning firmly established, it was about saying, okay, what all do we need to do to have continuity of business, manage for the now, manage for the current COVID, manage for the post-COVID, and then we realized that we're probably never going to have a post-COVID world. I think we're probably going to have in between a with COVID world. And how are we going to work during that time? Employee morale was not restricted only in terms of ensuring their physical safety. We realized an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So we enabled every individual to be able to work. You have to deliver. We debated so much about giving targets and not giving targets. And then we said you need to give purpose to people. If you're not going to give any purpose to people, they're not going to know what to do with their times. So what has been our learning is continue our initiatives on digitization, continue all our initiatives on people. We are among the top 20 best places to work today. So we just need to make sure that we do that right. You have to also plan for the here and now and the then and there. That's what we kept doing all these past 5 years. And that's what we will have to continue to do. The here and now, however, has not become a year. I think the here and now today literally is on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, on a daily basis, you're evaluating which area do we tell people not to go to work, which area do we say, okay, can we open up the office? Where do we get the leads from? So I think a lot of daily decisions are also coming into play. But phygital, I think, is here to stay. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway.
Quite interesting, as the country has divided into red zones and containment zones than the actually districts. Anamika ma'am, I will come to you and I would like to have your perspective. Everybody has its learnings. Going ahead, what are the changes and challenges you are going to see specifically in the post-pandemic world?
As I'll continue with my colleagues today, And you know what rightfully somebody has pointed out in this forum, that we were digitally ready. Let me tell you this,
Right.
because the day the lockdown was declared, I don't think any of us got nervous, and we said, okay, from life will be a different way of working, but we would be able to deliver. And so have we all done in the industry. Now, going forward, what this pandemic has done, or the little virus has done, is they actually did a better job than we could do ourselves by nudging people to work remotely and contactlessly. See, we never imagined that we would be sitting here and doing a conference or a seminar or a summit like this. We always thought we had to take a flight and reach there and be there ourselves. Today, we find this is the most convenient way of doing. So behavioral change is something that has come about, and it is here to stay. I think we all find meaning in this kind of a modality of delivery of our thoughts, and it is good. In terms of an organization perspective, after the learnings we've had from these last 4 months, one thing that will continue is to build an operational resilience based on higher or an escalated level of digitalization, where the systems will have to be much more seamless than what it was earlier, where we thought of a bionic thrust in terms of digital as well as physical businesses. Now it would mean that our processes redesigning will always be kept at a stage where we would think is end-to-end is digital. What we were doing so far was a aided technology for business, but now I think technology will come or take a priority while business designs and process designs are laid out for the organization. That I think is a learning that we would like to keep with us and take advantage of this learning and move forward. However, people will always be required. Basic business model of insurance is not going to change. However, the way we deliver will certainly have a fresh look.
Yes, how you're going to deliver will have a major impact, and in fact that's what will determine the success of not only insurance companies but the entire financial ecosystem, because everybody is looking at a great UI and UX going ahead. uh, while changing the gears again of the conversation, Vibha ma'am, I will come to you, and if you could give me more what I can say perspective specifically on the, has people started surrendering their policies? Have you as a company started reducing the premium in this time because everything is going digital, so automatically the cost may be less than the typical physical products? So what kind of business changes that you are witnessing right now?
It's a very valid point, Amol, because cash conservation behavior is something that we are continuing to watch very closely and micromanaging that, reaching out to customers, anticipating potential job losses, small and medium businesses being under stress. When you look at the CMI data, 5 million jobs lost in the month of
Exactly.
July alone, and so on, an overall tally of about 17, 18 million post COVID, or during the wake of COVID. So yes, people are feeling the pinch. The morat still continues, and so on. So we can't reduce prices per se, because these are all filed products. But what we can certainly do is to tell them that, for example, loan against policy is available. A lot of people don't know that, and these loans against policy are just hypothecation is their policy itself, and especially in the under traditional products today, as we speak, just last year about 400 crores has been given as loans, so quite a sizable amount of loans against the policies, and these are can be for very short periods, just when the individual has stress. So those sorts of things, and what we're also finding is that customers are beginning to realize, especially for protection, that they have to pay their premiums. They might be older, they might be post-COVID, and so on. So getting a policy all over again, if they were to surrender, lapse this one, might be that much more difficult. But it's taking time. And although we grew 24% in renewal premium in the first quarter, this is one metric that I will handhold and watch personally very, very closely. So the worst is not over yet in terms of the stress in the system is how I feel.
Okay, I copy that. The worst is not over. And Shania ma'am, I will come to you. You spoke a bit about the health insurance pickup. We have seen a major decline in specifically the motor insurance product, which is a major growth engine for the general insurance companies. What kind of uptake are you seeing in health insurance products? Do you think that this rally will continue? And will you also adjust whatever the little bit profit or the revenue that you used to generate from motor with the health going ahead?
So first of all, I think to put it in perspective, the rally in health as we see it now is continuing. So
Okay.
the growth every month has gotten sharper and sharper. Okay, the growth in June has been higher than the growth in May, in July has been higher than June, and so on. The offtake for the new, COVID policies that have been launched has been phenomenal. Okay, every company has seen a phenomenal offtake in COVID. We've got huge inquiries on COVID-specific policies.
Hmm.
So the health growth is continuing. Motor also, every month we are seeing lesser and lesser decline.
Okay.
Where in the month of April, maybe it was close to 50%. In the month of July, it was only about 6% decline. So, every month the decline in motor is reducing, and right now the decline is primarily linked to the decline or the reduction in new vehicle sales. And if we were to look at private car, I think private car is doing okay. Commercial vehicle will probably have seen more of a decline. Even if you look at the numbers released by the industry, whether it's SIAM or FADA, you will find July 2020, 197 lakh cars got sold, which is more or less equal to what was sold last year.
Right.
And in fact, it was significantly higher than what was sold in June. Similarly, in two-wheeler also, there was over 30% growth month on month, and over year on year, I think was down by about 10-15%. So the decline is sort of plateauing or flattening in motor as well. So I see that people are not postponing. There was some postponement of premiums in April and May. I don't see that postponement of premium any longer. In fact, health people have become far more conscious. People are buying health. People are inquiring about what all their coverages are. As far as passing on savings, etc., is concerned, I think these are very short. These are not short-term movements.
Right.
You have to view the business, and you have to view the costs and the loss ratios over a longer period of time to see whether there has been any tangible, meaningful, and sustained improvement in the overall expense and loss ratios in the industry. As we speak, the industry has received about 150,000 claims on COVID alone, right? So I think, and we still as an industry make a underwriting loss. So first for us will be to actually try and cover those underwriting loss, but eventually if all this digitalization leads to much better operating ratios and we are able to bring our underwriting losses much below, and the combined operating ratio below 100% as an industry, I think eventually you will see it translating into better pricing for consumers. But I think that's a longer term thing, because you have to see sustainable improvement in efficiency before you start translating it into pricing. But that's definitely a possible outcome in the medium to long term.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks for speaking specifically about that underwriting part also, because we have seen a lot of changes in health insurance and many complaints also from the hospital side, and I can see the pressure on the insurance companies there. Vishakha ma'am, my question is specifically about the protection products, where we can see some decline from the people side at one side. That is one argument, and the other argument is people are also looking for the protection period. So protection policy. So tell us the truth. What is happening on that front? Are people looking for buying more investment products in the current situation? How is it?
I think it's extremely dependent on the individual scenario and the stage of life that they are in.
Mhm.
One point is true, that I think we can finally say that life insurance has moved from a push product to maybe a nudge product. I
Right.
still won't say we've moved to a pull product, but definitely I think we've moved to a nudge product. There is far more research online in terms of term insurance, life insurance, and there are more customers going there. We have seen an increase in website sales. We have seen an increase in customers reaching out and searching for life insurance. The difficulty, however, that has happened in life insurance is that typically life insurers are data junkies. You know, the actuaries in a life insurance company need data. They need data, they need trends, they need to know what. Because unlike as in non-life, an error is there with us to stay for the rest of the policy period, which can be 15 to 20 years. We can't reprice it at the end of 1 year, because the price we give now is going to be there for the long term, for the duration of the policy. Considering that, and considering that the reinsurers are really not feeling confident enough on the availability of data to support very high term policies, to support tele-underwriting, to support non-medicals or a high medical limit, combined with nobody knowing what's happening to the COVID claims. I think this absence of data and the absence of a hold on what exactly COVID is doing is definitely leading to a certain reticence in the ability to underwrite and the ability to take high risks. That's from the company side. From a customer perspective, clearly, there was a Swiss Re survey that was conducted in the last week of May, which showed that there is an increase in demand with a 62% rise in new policy searches and also a higher outreach by the insurance companies. So to answer your question, yes, there is an increase. There's definitely a pull towards insurance, and thereby, insurance has become more of a nudge sales than a push sales in the current environment. As an insurance company, we are continuing to invest in growth. We are continuing to look at how can we raise our retention limits. And yes, we do have a limitation, despite all the data analytics, despite all the big data that we can actually mine. There is a limitation in the fact that the COVID experience is only available to us for the past 6 to 9 months. We don't know how it's going to play out. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave. How do you price for something which is completely unknown for the long term, not for the short term? And I think that's the biggest challenge that we all have.
Right. In fact, I would like all of you to decode a bit more on that, how to decode that challenge, because no one else can do that better than you, because you are in the business of the risk, right? But quickly, I will take Anamika ma'am, your view here. I have seen the big fight with the hospitals from the health insurance companies. I have seen a big fight from the customers, policyholders with the hospitals. Is that the reason the companies will now, take underwriting specifically for health insurance more into consideration? Can we see the policy premiums of health insurance going up in near future? How, are you looking at the overall scenario of underwriting and dealing with hospitals where the price is under control, which is not under control at all?
I don't think we are fighting with the hospitals. All we are asking them is to be reasonable in what they are doing and how they are charging. In our business, our ecosystem is very wide. We sell something, but the service is provided by someone. So for us, it's such a collaborative effort required that it is very high on collaboration. And we continuously have to keep working with our service providers, and one of them is a hospital. To say that the premiums would go up because of this, in the short term, no. As my colleagues have already pointed out regarding data, which is very important, currently whatever we are doing is based on some past data. This COVID is I would say it's just a short-term experience that we are facing right now. Let this year go by, and based on whatever experience we have, probably the product can get repriced in the future. The trend of a very long-term policy may see a drastic change. It could be that a smaller duration period would be, I think, a demand in the future, which will be a pull. We had launched a very small product last year, I think year before actually, but last year we sold quite a number. It's called the Mosquito. Basically, it was a vector-borne diseases, which did well for a particular period and a season. And after that, kind of naturally, it did not grow. So to say that just because hospitals, maybe their prices are increasing, we will increase our rate right now, no.
Okay.
But what we feel, if more people come into what I would call is an insurance ambit, then it is nothing but pooling from all and paying to few, and that would justify our existence and our pricing. In the long run, health will definitely be reviewed in a very serious manner by everybody. But unlike our life colleagues who are here in the panel today, ours is a short-term business. So for us, we have an advantage of reviewing rates on an annual basis. But of course, regulator has a time period before which we are not able to renew or review the pricing. So for us, we are little bit, I think we are in an advantageous situation compared to the our life colleagues. Increasing prices is difficult. With this price, people are not purchasing. If we increase, what will happen? We will not get any more customers. So after the pandemic, or still now that we are facing some kind of upheaval in our social structure also, there is a lot of inquiry, but the sales, even if we say they have gone up, but what is the penetration? Where is the penetration? Health penetration still is yet to, we need to really see where they are moving. And I think before me, someone mentioned about affordability. It is true. Today, in the last 4 months, I think I look at my figures every day and seeing that people are still not renewing their policies because they would like to keep the money for something which they think is a priority in their life and not insurance. They feel the car is standing in my garage. I don't need to pay the insurance right now. In health, what they feel is this will get over and maybe I will look at it once I have money in the hand. This period is a learning in terms of also the mindset of our prospects in what they think is a priority. Is insurance a priority? It is not. But has this virus nudged people to think? Yes. When will we see the fruit of this behavior? I think it will come slowly, not so quickly. The Corona Kavach policy or the Corona Raksha policy, which we see, is just like our Mosbite. It is a temporary security being provided. And I just hope people continue to buy, which in my opinion would result maybe in choosing higher policies with full-fledged covers. I think that definitely will go up. But the penetration level, we'll have to wait. Even after 20 years of privatization, it's not a very heartening scene. And I hope you've heard that government is coming up with one more initiative, which is the missing middle. And if that happens, then I think a lot of people will come into the insurance fold, and that will help us to rationalize prices in the future.
Thank you for confirming again on that premium side, Anamika ma'am, and offering your perspective specifically on what is happening right now on the health insurance side. Vibha ma'am, I have a very important question, and Vishakha ma'am also touched push product and the full product part some time back. It's been 20 years now since, almost 2 decades since the private companies, got into the insurance business, but still we are talking about the push product. How long will it take for insurance companies now, specifically, even after the situation like pandemic where everyone has realized the value of insurance and specifically health insurance? So how long will it take for insurance companies to in fact shift from push to pull products now?
I think we're almost there in terms of some products. I am very, very optimistic based on what's happened with some of the pandemics in the past, whether it's the SARS or MERS. I'm also finding the pull of the market. You can sense the pull of the market in terms of protection. And I think that this again will be nuanced. Not everybody is going to start buying insurance. It will continue to remain nudge, push, etc. But the youngsters, I think when you look at someone who is 30, 32, etc., just starting off one's career, and India was shining, you had a decent qualification, your background did not matter, there was no looking back, right? And suddenly there's been a massive jolt. I think the youngsters will take this with them for several decades, which is almost them becoming wise overnight. which would have taken several decades in the normal scheme of things for them to learn things about how to protect, need for protection, etc. So and when you put things into perspective, that a 1 crore cover can cost 7, 8,000, 9,000 rupees,
Right.
which is what they could spend in over a couple of weekends pre-COVID in a multiplex and an outing. Right, so they're beginning to ask, okay, why are we even discussing this? This costs
Right.
a trivial amount in this, which is not how their fathers and grandfathers were looking at it. They were looking at it as a cost, etc. So this shift is quite palpable. Second thing I'm beginning to see is in terms of employers, quite a noticeable shift. The amount of pull that we're getting from employers to cover their employees, moving away from the US system to say, I'll pay you your CTC and what you do with it is your problem. I'm moving away from a defined benefit scheme to a defined contribution in a way. Now, listed companies, for example, have to demonstrate that they are a caring employer. ESG is becoming more and more important. So they no longer can they say, I don't know, my employee has no cover whatsoever and he's suffering because of COVID or whatever it might be. We are telling them one can't price when a pandemic is already upon us. That it's no longer insurance. So we're having those difficult conversations with them and trying to see
Right.
how we can help them out. But we are experiencing that pool as well of corporates as well as PSUs.
Okay.
Amol, I would just
Yes.
like to add on to what Vibha had to say.
Sure.
While you definitely see a trend in the youngsters changing, I want to give a perspective, to the whole business of insurance and penetration, and say we should look at it under the broader umbrella of risk management. Okay. At the end of the day, this is about managing your risks. This is about your individual assessment of the risk. And in a way, I genuinely believe that there has to be some mandate around people having to buy insurance. There is a mandate around people having to wear helmets, right, when they're driving a scooter. If you didn't have a mandate, what do you think will be the percentage of people who will actually go and buy that helmet?
Right.
Forget the cost, right? It will be completely dependent on his or her risk-taking capability.
Yes.
Buying insurance is very similar to that. It is about what is your risk approach, what is your approach to risk management, what is your tolerance towards risk, and we need to start understanding insurance as a risk management tool and understand that people use a risk management tool or not based on their own risk appetite. I think we just need to keep that in mind.
Very well said. I copy that. But I have different views here. And if you could, again elaborate more here. In fact, I wanted to come to you again on this point. Is this that since I have been covering this space since almost a decade now, insurance space, I have seen many changes in the product front as well. And I was really surprised, to see that almost like 7-8 years back, the basic product of ULIP, was costing at 25,000 to 30,000 rupees. Okay. And the insurance companies were saying, okay, the penetration is really less and people are not buying products. So if the products were really expensive, if the products are really complicated, why the people will actually look at buying the products was the major debate that happened. And in fact, there was a major change here when Prime Minister announced the small products like PMJDY or PMJSY, and there was a major uptake for those products. So what kind of changes do you think the industry and the insurance player themselves need to do, to make the sustainable business model for insurance companies and also to make the penetration reach to the next level?
Amol, when PMJJBY was launched, and this was in 2015, and I remember we were one of the first companies to file for it. I don't know if Anamika and Shania are offering the PMJJBY or not, but I think the PMJJBY, we sold it and we gave complete support to our shareholders. There was a drive, there was a push. There was a lot of money spent in terms of familiarizing people with it.
Right.
There was a lot of government monitoring in terms of making sure that these policies were sold.
Right.
Even with the entire PMJJBY being priced at 330 rupees for 2 lakhs, no questions asked, simple process, we did not see too much of pull. We did not see 130 crores or even 70 crores of policies.
Mhm.
The policies that got sold were the policies that the PSU banks actually sold.
Mhm.
So there has to be, India as a country is really got very high risk tolerance.
Hmm.
Our approach or our attitude to anything going wrong is to go and pray. And I think there is an inherent
Okay.
risk tolerance level that we have, which needs to change. We just not those risk management people, and we're talking about an entire change. That's my view. You can't lay everything at a product level or at a pricing level.
Right.
Life insurance companies, when the privatization happened, was the first time India heard about term plans.
Yes.
India hadn't heard about term plans until privatization happened.
Right.
So I think the insurance has really done a lot. The insurance companies have done a lot.
Right.
And there is a certain amount of change in people that needs to catch up.
Right. Very interesting.
Amol, I
Yes.
just want to add to what Vishakha is saying. She's actually hit a very pertinent point. The level of the fatalism that exists in our country, dekha jayega, and it's a question of how clear and present you sense the danger is. Okay,
Yes.
in the almost 18 years that I've spent in insurance, I can honestly tell you this COVID product is the only one that has got pull, where we just put it on the website and started selling without trying to push anything, no performance marketing, nothing. It just this is the only because people sense that there's danger around the corner. People are sensing that there's risk, and the risk is beyond their tolerance limit. For a change, this risk has breached the Indians' tolerance threshold. I think that's very critical. We otherwise these conversations are pushed or procrastinated because either it's not happening to me, or what is the reason that we don't buy home insurance, because we
Right.
feel that whatever happens we'll be able to absorb that. The risk is very infrequent. So I think the first time what COVID at least has done for health insurance in the narrow context of COVID for the next 6 months to 9 months has said that, oh, I need to have some cover in case something goes
Right.
wrong. In fact, I was comparing insurance to things like a screen. You buy an iPhone, most people will buy a screen guard for that iPhone, or you will buy a cover, and these are more expensive than a small health insurance. Health insurance now is available in installment, but it will never occur to people. Today, if you look at vaccine, what is vaccine? Vaccine is primarily insurance against getting COVID. Not everyone will be exposed to COVID. Just like that, we have to, unless the unless the risk becomes really heightened in people's minds, people will not take insurance seriously. It's not even a question of affordability over the long term. Maybe right now people wonder, but over the long term, I don't think the cost is what deters them. The thought that I don't really need it, and if it happens, I'll be able to deal with this. What is the reason behind this? At least that I think COVID has done. But the longevity of this effect is, up for up for debate. I don't know whether this will last until next year. Hopefully, after the vaccine comes, will still people buy COVID? I don't know. So
Right.
I think informing and somehow making people more aware or heightened to the risks that exist is something that needs to be done. And I agree, product design can only do so much.
Right.
Look at products. Term products in India are so cheaply priced compared to the market. Motor insurance in India is one of the cheapest in the world, but it's not like people are queuing up to buy it. And compare it to Japan. We used to wonder, do people wake up in Japan wanting to buy insurance? It almost seems like South Korea and Japan, because it's a very different perception of risk. And how do we change that as a society, as a population, is what I wonder.
Maybe I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I don't
Please
know.
go
It
ahead.
is like, does insurance benefits start at the school level? Should our children grow up as a subject, which is insurance, because they are the future prospects for us? And maybe it helps because the knowledge of insurance is scary to many people. And the concept of I may not get a claim is still bothering people.
Right.
So these are the things, I think, how do we address it? To make it simple, by small examples, then growing up, to say that companies now are with process driven. It is not the age old somebody, if only I know someone, I'll get my claim. Those days are kind of over.
Right.
So it is that. So I think this communication uh, in our part, yes, we are doing, but over a larger part. You also spoke about Pradhan Mantri Yojana, the various Yojanas. So what happened that this 12 rupees in our case in personal accident just got deducted.
Yes.
Even you are covered, I am covered, many of us are covered without even knowing we are covered. And although they're supposed to take a declaration and all of that, it's like an opt-in, opt-out philosophies operating. So it's working. It is working. And sometimes I do say government is, the biggest agency force that we can ever have. And they did help us, whether it is crop, whether it is government, all, even the Janarogya policies, it's all doing very fine. Now, the next stage, how can we build this consciousness of what insurance is at the level of a secondary, then the graduations, and then people probably will have twofold ideas about it. One, take it as a profession. Today, if you're in the United States, be it Japan, an agent has a different status. Even after 20 years, I've tried my level best during my past roles in agency development. I still haven't succeeded in building that agency force, which probably is required for more penetration. Let it be a bionic one, it doesn't matter, but that person. So the distribution needs to be strengthened. How? The agency force needs to keep on being, I would say, recognized that it is a good profession for us to do. And at the same time, the process, what is technology then aiding? It is a process that can be relied upon for taking claims. I think these two fear has to go, and the image of insurance company do pay claims need to be re-established and reaffirmed. And I'll request Economic Times that if they can run a column for a year somewhere, that how the processes have changed. It will at least help the reading public to make a conscious decision to buy insurance.
Very valid points, Anamika ma'am, and in fact, Shanay ma'am and Vishakha ma'am on this point. But I always, since I have been covering this space, there is one good example that I speak about when it comes to simplicity of insurance products. Is the insurtech company from UK, which is Lemonade. Okay, it started its business some 4-5 years back, and now everybody knows about it because it just got listed on NYSE 2 months back with a $3 billion valuation. Now, what they say is, we sell policy in 90 seconds and we disburse the claim in 3 minutes. I think that kind of simplicity is also required, to inform the customers and the policy holders, I think, and the education. So, obviously, we are running a bit short of time, but I will just take one important question with all of you. And Vibha, I will start with you. Going ahead now, next perhaps 6 months, 12 months are very crucial. And insurance companies are also looking at partnering with many, other ecosystem. I mean, we are already doing that. Maybe it's Swiggy, maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's Flipkart, or maybe other e-commerce companies. So where will you invest in the partnership? Because bank assurance is getting old and the new players are coming up. So how do you look at the new coming partnerships and where will you invest?
Oh, absolutely. So today, Amol, out of our 270 partnerships that we have, 40 are in the new ecosystem. So when you look at, and instead of spreading too wide, we've gone deep and we've identified 5 such new ecosystems. You have telecom, you have the fintech companies, you have the health tech companies, you have the edutech, and so on. So, and we have tied up. So a couple of examples there, for example, an Airtel or a Paytm. In an Airtel, what we have to do is our technology integrates with their journey. So the guy is recharging his phone. And for 279 rupees, he gets for the recharge of 279 rupees, he gets a 4 lakh rupee cover. Very simple. We have to figure out in terms of that journey wherein he is not going to do anything in terms of additional hoops that he has to go to AML, KYC, etc. So, and that's where analytics comes in. That's where this bite-sized insurance comes in. And if you look at, if you start looking at the volumes, so you're looking at anything up to probably 50,000 policies a day Those are the kind of numbers. When you look at Paytm, for example, we were doing about 12,000 policies a day. Of course, small ticket size. But when somebody is just sitting on an aircraft and he says, for this journey, I want to take. So it's getting into that space. But two things are very important. That the risk that we carry on our balance sheet is something that we understand. One can get this wrong. That is one. Second is that for the customer, it has to be seamless. So data analytics and use of various data proxies that you have to know who's this guy who's transacting in whatever ecosystem that he is transacting. You took the example of Lemonade. We're still some distance from that. Although are we aspirational as a insurtech? Sure we are. But I think what will remain, and we day in, day out, look at the space very, very closely. The way we see it evolving is, first of all, general insurance, because we discussed also about it being 1 year kind of policies. It's easier, a smaller ticket as against average ticket size for us, maybe 65,000-70,000 rupees, and higher if it's annuity and so on. So that's where you'll see a lot more of innovation, and we're seeing that happening anyway, even in India. In life, what you will see is that you will have those kind of partners as the front, and you will have a manufacturer behind. And you'll see that it becomes a symbiotic relationship. We need them and they need us. But yes, you will see a lot of this disaggregated ecosystem. Anybody who has customers will want to convert themselves into a financial mart. And that's what we're beginning to see. So we need to be where the customer is.
Right.
And it's evolving into a B2B2C model. Insurance in India was a B2B model. Now it's B2B2C is how we see it.
Okay, quite interesting. Shanay ma'am, would like you to add something here because I think compared to life insurance, for general insurance, the life is a bit easy because your products are like valid for maybe a 1 year or not more than 2 years. There is some innovation that happens in health insurance as well. So are you like innovating more products?
Yes, you would have heard about our Switch product, which is not which is not an ecosystem product. It was a product is basically switch on and switch off. You can switch on your car insurance and switch it off. It's the product. There is no paper. There is no PDF. It's an application, which is your policy document and everything. And before the pandemic hit, we were actually talking to a car rental company how they could completely go off with the OD, and the customer during the duration of the rental or the trip just takes that, switches it on, and it automatically seamlessly happens. So like Vibha said, your products have to be very embedded in a contextual journey of the customer, because customer, let's face it, customer, apart from health insurance, honestly, nothing else is a destination product, and health and life and saving, nothing else in GI is a destination product. It's always linked to the consumption or purchase of some other service or product. So we have to be present during that journey and be relevant to the customer during that journey. As a company, we have already got many such partnerships in place, and where we are not just talking about fitting our product, but we are actually talking about using their data to curate our product. So for instance, can we create a car insurance where we are not using, the usual metrics that we use, what is the car, how old is it? We don't want to use all of that. We want to use other app-based data to curate a product which, fits in. So we are talking to people with products that we've got modular product structure. All our products are modular, so you can customize and package and give it to various partners. It's by design that we've created that. And using the partners' data, using their journey, how can you curate a product and fit it perfectly and seamlessly in the journey, where it's not just added value to the partner, it has to be added value to the customer. We don't want it to just be because it's 1 rupee, the customer just adds it, or 5 rupees. It should add value to the customer. So we are trying to create those products. And you mentioned Lemonade of US, great company. I follow it. I've studied a lot about it. But this entire thing, it's more than data and analytics. It's AI.
Okay.
AI's power to transform journeys in insurance is very, very powerful. Okay. And in GI, I think where we have an advantage probably is that we have customers interacting with us a lot more, because there are clients, they interact, our ability to influence their engagement and influence the journey with us is a lot more. And AI's power there is very high, and AI and behavioral economics is what Lemonade uses. But the interesting thing, Amol, is this instant 30-second or 3-minute claim that they've spoken of, and it's been made famous, that jacket that was claimed in 3 minutes. Only 30-40% of their claims are instant.
Right.
The rest go through a claims
Right.
adjuster, what they call, but even that process is so seamlessly handled, and it goes so seamlessly from that AI Jim, I think the bot's name is AI Jim, to this claim adjuster, that the experience is beautiful. I think that is where we need to aspire, because everything will not become instant.
Right.
Even an will tell you that something needs more investigation, something needs more clarification. How do you swiftly move and keep that transaction also digital and contactless is what I really marvel in their entire, business model. It's a great business model, and definitely inspiration for us.
Thank you, Shana ma'am. Vishakha ma'am, obviously life insurance is a long-term product, and you are good at analyzing the risk for the decades and the long term. But considering the pandemic that we saw just recently, how are you going to analyze the risk for next couple of years now? Because it's going to be very crucial. That's what I can see for the insurance companies. But again, no one else can give me that answer, because you are the insurer underwriters actually.
Yeah, I think one of the important fallouts of the pandemic is the ability to share data. If there was one development that would make a significant impact to how we could have our very own lemonade within the country, it is to share data.
Okay.
Today, for instance, if there was a customer, let's assume the customer had a claim that he took from a hospitalization claim with, say, Kotokyo. All right. And then that customer comes and applies for a life insurance. I have zero idea that he's just taken a claim from IFCO Tokyo.
Okay.
There is no centralized repository. We
Okay.
don't even have a centralized KYC today. We have to, between insurance companies, if somebody wants to take a second policy, there's a fresh KYC to be done.
Right.
Can we do it at an insurance company level alone? No. I think it has to be done at an overall, at an overall environment level. Where is it that we can have today? Hospitals don't have a common repository. Today, there isn't any common repository or documentation of claims that can be taken from anywhere. We need a lot more data sharing. It's easy to sit here and compare to a lemonade, but we have to understand that with one social security number, that individual's entire horoscope life history can be seen. When was he hospitalized, for what he was hospitalized, how much did he claim, whether he lost his front tooth or his, left lobe, everything is available. What can you get about an individual in India is a question that I would like to leave behind. And I say, unless, we manage to get that repository that we have been working on, where you can look at data. I know IIB has been making some efforts for it. I think National Health Registrar Agency has been making some efforts. And if I have to say one thing that we definitely need, we need that centralized registry. We need to have that common sharing of information, and only then will we really be able to make our own lemonades.
Very, very interesting. Anamika ma'am, quickly, I would like to ask you about the partnerships, because I can see some pickup for the health insurance products, and we partly discussed that. So going ahead, maybe people will be interested to buy health insurance products because of the COVID situation. So how are you going to get ready for yourself, perhaps to produce more short-term, long-term health insurance products?
We are actually debating within ourselves what kind of products. There will be an emerging, I would say that you will see a lot of emerging products coming out, which could be a slightly long tail, which is like, say, 3 years. It could be disease specific. It could be a situation specific. Yes, we are thinking, and I think the sandbox, one more tranche is going to start from 15 September, and we will be participating with our new products. However, I would also like to add in the innovation, as you just spoke about lemonade. I would be very proud to speak on your platform today that about a year ago, IBM, we are a case study now on AI-driven claims. We do settle claims today. Whoever is willing to give, many customers still, there has to be a behavioral shift. They feel, kaise hoga? We say you upload a video and we will pay. But we have great success. At least now 1 lakh claims this year, hopefully we will be settling. So it takes a spot 30 minutes. It's not 3 minutes. You upload and 30 minutes, what we call is a quick claim service. And that up to 50,000, if someone is willing to take that payment in the method that we have just spoken about, then we are going ahead with this. Similarly, in case of health, what kind of innovation are we looking at? I'm sure the entire industry is also going to work. Is it preventive more than giving the actual claim amount? So hopefully, I think regulator is really moving ahead compared to many other countries. The sandbox that we last time, maybe we didn't participate well, but this time I think we would be bundling this kind of preventive measures along with different modalities of execution of the health policies, I would say. So you will see some more innovation coming up in health by all of us in the industry. Each one will have their own specific niche or a segment that we would like to cater to. And we primarily are focused on rural. So our products will be rural specific, more to say, but that does not mean we will not be filing products for the urban population as well. So it's segmentation, innovation, you will see. I think this analytics bit, we've been talking for a while. And Amol, you have been in this space, you've heard many of us speak about it. Why is it that we are still talking? It is only one reason, and that reason is that building of database and utilizing it probably, maybe now, let's see how it shapes up. I'm hopeful that we will soon see a good movement in this case. You know, we have a lot of challenges in our industry, and that prohibits many things sometimes.
Thank you so much for that answer, Anamika ma'am. In fact, I really got an interesting insights from all of you. Before I just wrap up, I have just one, maybe a rapid fire question, and not specifically about the insurance industry, but about you specifically, because we are witnessing this, what I can say, unprecedented situation. So Anamika ma'am, I will start it from you. What are you missing in the virtual world? I do know that you are also working from office, but still we are all operating from the virtual world. So what are you missing the most in this virtual world?
The emotional, the social emotional connect when you're talking to your colleagues, sharing a cup of tea, talking your heart out sometimes on some issues that is so pertinent to the company. Today, yes, Zoom calls. And in fact, till last week, I was actually having calls within the office also through internet because of, protection issues. That I really miss. I definitely miss the kind of events that we were organizing for our partners, our colleagues. I think that bit of, I would call it harmonious celebrations are missed.
Okay. Vishakha ma'am, quick views. What are you missing the most in virtual world?
Communication. You know, it is said 30% of communication or even less is words and 70% is body language. So I just don't feel that I'm communicating at all.
Okay. What about you, Shanai ma'am?
For me, I think all that Anamika and Vishaka said. But for me, I feel I miss the energy of brainstorming. It's just that, being in the same room and feeding off each other's ideas simultaneously with that energy running through. Even though in Teams we have a whiteboard, etc., we can do that. But something about being in the same room, picking up a marker, going, writing, someone else coming and wiping out, that energy and that adrenaline is something that I miss.
Wow. What about you, Vibha ma'am?
I don't have much to add. I think my colleagues have said it all. I agree with all the things
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for the amazing insights that all of you shared. Thank you so much for taking part into ETBFSI Converge. Thank you so much for tuning into this panel discussion. And dear participants, I hope you enjoyed this session. I would like to tell you that you can make the comments on the left side of your window, and also do like, share, or make comments on social media as well with the hashtag ETBFSI Converge. So thank you, Vibha ma'am, thank you, Anamika ma'am, thank you, Vishaka ma'am, and thank you, Shanai ma'am, for joining us on ETBFSI Converge.
It was privileged to see all of you ladies CEOs on the panel. Thank you, esteemed panelists, for sharing those antidote for the insurance business. So please share your feedback on this session by making use of the comment box, and we will catch you in the next session.